Hello and welcome to our series of creative entrepreneurship webinars. Hello and welcome to our series of creative entrepreneurship webinars. My name is Gillian Easson'un and I'll be your facilitator for this webinar. This series of webinars is part of Inspire, a project funded by the European Union to support the development of an effective policy framework for the vibrant creative economy in Turkey. The action is implemented by GIZ, the German Development Agency, to build the capacity of the Ministry of Technology and Industry and the development agencies in Istanbul and Izmir. It's a pleasure to see you again. We are going to cover the fourth in the 5-part series. You can see the content overview here. And this webinar will take approximately 45 minutes to complete, but it's got about 2 hours worth of content within it. As I say, it's the fourth in the 5-part series, and this is the module Engaging with Your Audience, part 1. So, as you'll remember, we've covered a lot in terms of how to design your business and your project. We've explored more about the individual leadership styles that you might have. Next, we're going to consider the wider external factors and actors that influence your project or business. So that can be the networks, the customers, the users, the audience around us that we need in place for our ideas and ourselves to thrive. So here I have a human-centered design slide. And I wanted to remind us of the double diamond as a really useful process to ensure that you're putting people at the center of your ideas. So as you can see here, yes, it's all about putting people at the center of the development process. This is an approach that aims to make systems usable and useful by focusing on the users, their needs, and their requirements. Empathy is talked about a lot, and I think it's a really important, critical tool for anybody that wants to set up a sustainable business or continue running a sustainable business. I think we all have to empathize more with the people that might use our product or service. So you can see that within the discover phase of the double diamond. That will allow us to define clearly the problems and goals that they face. It will allow us to ideate, so in the middle there, come up with the ideas for solutions. And then we have to ensure that we're always prototyping ideas, testing them out with actual users. And then we can evaluate the effectiveness of those ideas, of those tests, and make improvements based on that knowledge. So I just wanted to remind us of the Design Council's double diamond here. So we're going to continue thinking about this human-centered design methodology throughout our session today. We're going to start by stakeholder mapping. It's a practical tool, again, a bit like, if you remember, blueprint modeling that we covered in Designing Your Business. And here we have my messy version, just to show you the reality of how you can do it. It doesn't have to be polished. So with stakeholder mapping, I believe it's a really valuable tool to identify and visualize the key stakeholders within a project or your business. It enables you to consider the various stages of getting your product or service into the hands of customers or users. And you can think about who helps you imagine, create, develop, connect, lead, manufacture, produce, distribute, deliver, market, sell, and review your product or service. It's a really expansive tool. You only need, once again, some sticky notes and a pen. And I would suggest getting a big piece of flip chart paper or a wall that you can draw on. And just go with it. Go with trying to map out all the different actors, the potential partners, your funders, your suppliers, everyone who helps you reach your customers and audience. You can use connecting lines, stickers, whatever you fancy to make it make sense to you. And you might find it useful to categorize these types of organizations and actors into themes of your business process. So it might be those that help you in the design phase. It might be those who help you in the distribution phase, in the marketing phase, etc., depending on your business. I hope you find that a useful tool. I know I certainly do. This is my example for my own organization, Creative Dundee. It needs a bit more work, but I really enjoy that kind of messy process and then standing back and looking at where the gaps are or where the commonalities and patterns might lie. I hope you enjoy that tool. Next, we're going to move on to understanding your audience. So, understanding your audience. It is, of course, a big topic because you need to be able to connect with your audience. So to do that, you need to be able to first understand them. And often when we speak about business, entrepreneurship, development, we hear a lot about customer personas or customer profiles, user personas. You might have heard those terms before. Whilst I think they can be useful, I don't think that's the starting point. For me, the starting point, again, is empathy. I prefer a tool called empathy mapping because empathy mapping helps you to create a shared understanding of your user's needs. It helps you to identify key problems to solve. It limits misunderstandings about target audiences, and it potentially points out gaps in your research. Now, I've included an example of an empathy map here, the larger image. And within this, it asks you questions such as, what does this person feel? Where are their values coming from? What's important and meaningful for them? What does this person see? Are there experiences in similar or different settings from your own? What does this person do? What are their talents? Where do they add value? And what does this person hear? What is their background music? What are they hearing all the time? And what pressures are they facing? I think it's only by doing this and identifying your target audience person that then you can move on to developing a persona of a person. And you will see the smaller image is a template persona. And it asks you to complete a kind of individual user profile of someone. You can give them a name, an age, a demographic, an occupation, an ethnicity, education, location, interests, their goals. You can add so much to it. However, I think until you understand, you can't literally be that person. So I think you have to get in depth by understanding what they feel, what they see, what they do, and what they hear before then completing a persona, which you can find online and will be included in the notes. I hope you find that tool useful. I certainly do. for helping empathize with your customers, your audience, and then developing a profile for you to then be able to work towards, aspire to have products and services that meet their needs. Okay. So next we're going to move on to developing your audience. And we thought it would be fun to include a live case study. As I said, I run an organisation called Creative Dundee, which I set up, founded as a blog initially. And then I realised that actually there was an audience that was really willing to be part of a bigger thing. So I set up Creative Dundee. And Creative Dundee is a network organisation. It is, it's all about centering creative communities, creative professionals, as essential catalysts for positive collective good. And we do that within our own city, but we've extended our reach. And these are just some of the projects, events, and activities that we have. We have a very vibrant online platform where people come to find out what's happening, but we also share provocative articles, informative information, events that are coming up. And then we run a range of other things. So that just helps set the context about what Creative Dundee is all about. It's all about ensuring that creative communities are resourced, have opportunities, and are connected to the life of the city. I wanted to talk about two examples of how we have connected and engaged our community, and that's helped our organisation to grow. So Dundee was bidding to become a capital of culture. So an award given for 1 year for a city to put on big cultural events. Dundee really wanted to win that title. And we were part of that. I was part of that. I was invited to join the panel that were helping put that together. What we realized was very quickly that it was a very small number of people that were around that table, and that wasn't fair. We wanted the whole city to be around that table, and that wasn't feasible. So we started to think about how we could do that. And myself and a digital developer came up with the idea to create a crowdsourcing platform that enabled people right across the city to share what they loved about the city and what they would love to see happen in the future of the city. It became a really popular platform. It was 10 years ago. However, I think a lot of this still resonates today with what we're all trying to achieve, which is for people to feel like they belong to our places. They need to have a connection and have a voice and be listened to. So our crowdsourcing platform was called wedundee.com. And people could go on, upload an avatar, a little icon of their choice, and then share what they loved. And what we found was it quickly snowballed into a place, a destination website for people to come. And it almost became like another television channel. People were tuning in to kind of hear what their friends or people they'd never met were saying. And you can see some examples here that I've included about what really emotive things people wanted or what they really loved about the city and what they really wanted to see happen in the future. It quickly became much bigger than we'd ever imagined. So what happened was the news channels started harvesting information from the platform. So our local newspapers and online websites started to take the quotes as really positive ways that communities across the city, what they were saying about the city, which made a change from the usual reporting in our places, which was often quite negative. So it was a really fantastic opportunity for people to remind themselves about what an astonishing place Dundee is and what remarkable people live here and work here. And whilst we didn't win, actually, that particular cultural title, we subsequently we became a UNESCO City of Design, which is a lifelong title. And we were able to demonstrate that people really helped design the place that we live in. So we, Dundee, had a much longer lifespan than the kind of 1 year original plan. We made sure that nobody was excluded from the process, so it wasn't just digital. It was absolutely about connecting with our local libraries so that people could go into the library and write up their little note about what they loved and what they would love to see happen in the future. We also worked with designers in the city to create pop-up stations that could be placed in shopping centres or community festivals. And that meant that more and more people could kind of take part. Submissions came in from thousands of people, thousands of contributors, from thousands of cities across the world, actually. There was a kind of extended Dundee reach. And as I say, the ideas were visited again and again. People just wanted to hear positive information about their place. And we shared that data regularly back with residents through social media channels to build that momentum and reach. And the enthusiasm, ideas, and ambitions were built into Dundee's bid, but subsequently into the city's plans. Surprisingly, there were very few negative submissions. So as the person that was accepting the kind of submissions behind the scenes, I can say that actually I was blown away by the fact that people largely wanted to be positive. And the kind of any negative bits of feedback were generally about quite minor things, quite small things. So it was such a success that actually in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, we brought back We Dundee in collaboration with UNESCO City of Design Dundee. So again, it was an online crowdsourcing platform, and it invited residents to creatively share their lockdown insights and reimagine the city's future. So we worked with local digital designers who helped develop a really interactive, fun platform that allowed you to create a little avatar, but you had much more scope to design the avatar. So all these you can see here have been designed by the person submitting the idea. So it ensured that people weren't just consuming content during the pandemics, particularly in the early days when we did not know what was going to happen, but it enabled them to be contributors and creators, not just consumers. And these little insights became so popular, again, in a different way. But what we actually did was worked with billboard creators, so to create posters, because there were not many posters during the pandemic. Nobody was advertising anything. So we worked with them to put them up around the city and our local council, who funded that to happen. And it ensured that, yeah, there was optimistic hope and ambitions, which were animating the city at a particularly dark time. But not only that, we collated all the data into usable content in spreadsheet form, and these were fed into the city's recovery plans. And again, that was really important for our local decision makers to help them kind of understand what people wanted to see happen in future. So it's been a real privilege to be part of We Dundee. What we then went on to do after the first iteration of We Dundee, as Creative Dundee, we knew that we had the ability to engage deeply with audiences across the city So we began crowdsourcing other things, including our popular 99 Things to See and Do in Dundee guide. So yes, it shares the unmissable things in and around Dundee. And we put it out essentially as a Google form. You know, we publish it, we promote it, we encourage people to complete it. We get hundreds of people responding, sharing the places that they know and they love. So it's really centering residents of our city as the experts. And people love that. You know, they love to be listened to, of course. We all seek that. So yes, our crowdsource guide is very popular. And this last iteration, because it came not long after the pandemic, not long after the new normal. So our latest guide is about offering inspiration with a big focus on things that are playful, free to access, that are accessible, that are cultural, that are green, and that are mood lifting. And all the local cultural organizations, tourist organizations, universities, they all use this little guide as the main guide to the city, because its unique selling proposition is that it's been designed and led by the people of Dundee. And it's really helped strengthen the relationship with the community here, as I say, by centering them as experts. So yes, in terms of the impact of these two projects, We Dundee generated a deep sense of pride and place for local people here. It was the most positive, optimistic campaign for engaging people in the city to date. Up until then, there have been lots of negative campaigns. All the thoughts and ideas were integrated into the bid and subsequent bids and plans. And it helped demonstrate that engagement with our residents and creative community was at the heart of our approach. And that approach led to crowdsourcing the popular 99 Things to See and Do guide, which has become the guide of choice, as I say, for tourists, for universities encouraging new students to the city, and for many of the city's cultural venues. So that is developing your audience. So lastly, what I'd like to focus on today is about building and maintaining relationships. I think, as we've discussed today, it is really critical to maintain, build, and strengthen relationships with your community and partners. And focusing on stakeholder mapping will identify who those many factors and those involved are. It is a fine balance to kind of consider your many audience needs, wants, and demands. I think it's a really important balancing act, as I've tried to demonstrate here. So through your skills in strategic thinking, in active listening and negotiating, you'll be developing relationships with multiple stakeholders all the time. Your employees rather, employers potentially, customers, shareholders, maybe partners, regulators, all your audiences. So understanding the needs and interests of these stakeholders is really important. You have to ensure that you're balancing them and making decisions that ultimately benefit your business and society as a whole. So maintaining these relationships will undoubtedly help you catalyze and activate new projects and businesses and ideas in the future, and make you more resilient as you go. So I've included here, as I say, a slide to kind of illustrate balancing those needs, wants, and demands. So needs are fundamental necessities for survival, like food, water, and shelter. So really think about what are the needs that your product or service is helping address. Wants are the specific desires beyond those basic needs. And they may be influenced by culture, by personal taste. They're important too, right? We all have wants. Demands can be formal requests and or the willingness and ability to purchase. So people who might have the purchasing power, they might have more demands. And I just think it's really important that if you've done your stakeholder mapping, then you might like to layer for each of your stakeholders, what are the individual needs, wants, and demands. So I hope you find that useful. So today we have covered stakeholder mapping. We're identifying all actors within within how we get our product and service to market, how we get it to our audiences. And we thought about how we might connect that up through lines, through stickies, through really practical ways. You can obviously do it on Miro or other platforms online that then you can share with your colleagues or audience. Then we focus on understanding your audience. So looking at how we might develop that through empathy mapping. What does this person feel, see, hear, etc.? And then thought about using user personas to perhaps give that audience a personal flavor. So really think about their personality as well. Once you've done empathy mapping, I would say. Then we've looked at developing your audience, and I've used a live case study of Creative Dundee with We Dundee and the 99 Things to See and Do guide. And then finally, we've covered building and maintaining relationships. So really thinking about those needs, those wants, and those demands, and how you balance that within your business to ensure your business's sustainability and to impact society as a whole. Up next, we've got the 5th in our 5-part webinar series, which is very exciting, and that is focused on engaging with your audience, part 2. And please do, refer to the webinar guide to view the presentation and the tools mentioned throughout. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you so much.